Today I'm going to talk about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, and that is I'm going to share with you why I'm so frugal. I have a lot of friends that over the years have asked me, why I'm frugal. Not in a mean way, not in a judgmental way, but they're just curious because they know, they're driving new cars every 3 or 5 years, and they know that, I've never bought a new car in my entire life, and I tend to hold on to my cars a lot longer than most of my friends. So let's go for a walk. I don't know if you can see this bubbling brook behind me, but let's go for a walk and I'll tell you more. So I think the main reason that I'm so frugal, first, is it's just the way I was brought up, right? I'm the first person in my long family history to ever have gone to college. So if you go all the way back to when my grandparents immigrated to the United States, they were farmers. They did not have high school educations. And so frankly, they didn't have a lot of money to spend, and they learned how to get by with very little and still have a very, high quality of life. I'm just amazed when I look at my ancestors, how little they had. My grandfather was a farmer on 25 acres. First, he was a hired hand for a farmer, and then he convinced the landowner, the farmer that he worked for, to carve out a little piece of his farm so that my grandfather could farm a piece and have his own land. And so he raised my mother and her 2 sisters on 25 acres, which, some houses are on 1 acre. So if you look at what 25 acres is, it's just, to me, it's unbelievable. I've seen the farm that he raised my mom on. It's unbelievable that he was able to raise 3 daughters and provide for everybody on that tiny, tiny plot of land. And my grandmother was partly Jewish, and when she saw what was happening in Germany before the start of World War II, she decided to leave and immigrate to the United States. And she washed people's clothes. She was basically a house cleaner during the day, and at night she would wash people's clothes. And yeah, I grew up outside of Cleveland, Ohio, and somehow she was able to actually buy a house. Just incredible, right? But the way you do that is, you've heard me say it before, no matter how much you earn, you spend less than what you earn. So I think it's just, it's part of my DNA that I'm frugal. So I think that's one of the reasons that I'm frugal. Another major reason is it's just it's who I am, and it's what I enjoy. People think that if you're frugal, it's sacrificial, and you're sacrificing unnecessarily. And for me, it opens the doors to a lot of adventures. For instance, I like to travel, and when my kids were younger, I was raising, my wife and I were raising our kids, and I was not able to travel outside of the United States much, right? There's a lot of moving parts to traveling with kids. Actually, it's one of my regrets that we didn't travel more outside of the U.S. when the kids were young. There's reasons for that I won't go into in the video that have nothing to do with being frugal. But because I wasn't able to travel until my mid-50s, the way I travel now is I sign up for a service. I think it costs me $49 a year. This isn't a sponsored video, but I do like the service. It's called Scott's Cheap Flights. You can Google it and find out about them. But they send me an email a couple times a week saying, hey, based on the city that you're in now, here's the locations that are quote unquote on sale. And because, most countries I haven't been to, I've been to 30 countries now, but there's still a lot of countries that I haven't been to. So if a country that I haven't been to is on sale, let's say I'm trying to decide, I thought maybe I wanted to go one place, but this other place is on sale. You know what? I'll take the place that's on sale and wait for the other location that was on my list. Maybe that'll go on sale next year. So, for me, it opens the door for a lot of adventures. I find that it's the non-traditional way of doing things, and I just find that it introduces me to people. So that would be the second reason, is I really enjoy my adventures, and it tends to give me more adventures this way. The other thing is, like, when I travel, I tend to not know where I'm going to stay for the entire trip, because oftentimes you're there, and once you get there, you're like, oh, I'd rather be on this side of town than the other side of town. And it closes a lot of doors, and I can't do that when I'm traveling with my wife because it's not fair to her. But for me, I'm willing to accept that trade-off. So the second reason, again, is just for the sense of adventure. And then, candidly, I'm in the financial advising business, and it's nice to be successful financially as well, and being able to save money and being able to do these things that I tell my clients that they should do, right? You've probably heard me talk about what I call the 3 rules to be successful financially. And to build your net worth. And those 3 rules are, no matter how much you earn, you have to spend less than what you earn so you can save money and invest it and let it grow. The other rules are 1 house and 1 spouse. So I think that first rule, to spend less than you earn, even when I was a poor college student, I still saved money, even if it was a very tiny amount. And actually, to be candid with you there, it didn't feel sacrificial at the time, but there's things you can do in your 20s that are hard to do later. And I had a great time in my 20s, but like, I didn't go to Europe backpacking with my friends, primarily because it was expensive. It also, huge hassle factor, right? We didn't have smartphones then. Just getting from point A to point B in that country would be more difficult. It's much easier now with smartphones. Airfare was much more expensive, but I kind of sacrificed unnecessarily in my 20s. So, the pros and cons of being frugal, I would say that would be the biggest con is there's times in your life where, think about the utility of money and how much joy you get from every dollar, every $1,000 that you spend. And I think in your 20s, boy, you can have a lot of fun for $1,000, even today, in your 20s. There's a lot of kids that could probably live for 2 or 3 weeks in Europe. They'd be staying in hostels, but you know what? They'd be having fun. So I actually go against the general rules in my industry. Most financial advisors would tell kids in their 20s, boy, if you can save $5,000 or $10,000 a year and put it in a Roth, look at what that's going to grow to. I'm actually the opposite, in part because of my experience, and encouraging people to say, you know what, it's okay to spend that money to go on that backpacking trip through Europe with your friends. Now, most of my friends would say I'm the most frugal person that they know. I have another friend that claims that title as well, but he has now relinquished that title over to me. So from my vantage point, and my frugal friends are going to be shocked at this, but even if you have to borrow a couple $1,000s from your parents in order to have an adventure like that, like backpacking through Europe or Southeast Asia when you're in your 20s, I think that's okay. So yes, I'm frugal. And I guess the con of that would be, what I just mentioned earlier about when I was in my 20s. The other thing is just, I talked earlier about the utility of money and how much joy you get from every dollar that you're spending. I opened the video and shared that, I've never owned a new car. And I drive my cars longer than most people do. Well, for me, the process of buying a new car, I actually did go to a new car lot. When I first graduated from college, thought I wanted to buy a new car. It wasn't going to be a crazy car. But it was going to be a new car for me. And, I left the dealership. It was just such an awful experience. I just didn't enjoy it and said, I'd rather deal with individuals than go to a car dealer, and a professional salesperson. I just didn't like the whole process. I didn't like how I was treated. And frankly, I don't get a lot of joy from having a quote unquote a nicer car. Really what I want is I want a car that looks good enough, right? And gets me from point A to point B and is mechanically reliable. So, I drive a 2006 Mini Cooper. And I love that car. I bought it from one of my friends. I've had that car now probably 8 years, maybe closer to 10. I bought it used from him. He used it as his summer car. And he said, "Hey, Azul, you're really going to enjoy this car in the summer. You should think about, I know you like the car, you should think about buying it. And it could be your summer car." And I told my friend, Azul doesn't have summer and winter cars. Azul has one car for all year round. So it gets to that utility, the things that I really enjoy in life, adventures, traveling. I've had a ton of adventures. I learned to surf when I was in my 50s. I was a hang glider pilot from the time I was 17. I did that for like 30 years. I've gone hang gliding all over the United States. I actually I've got my airline transport pilot rating, which means I can work for the airlines. I actually, back in the day, had an offer from the airlines. And for most people, getting an education, and I learned this in the civilian world, for most people, getting to the point where you've gotten all those flight ratings, for most people that costs like $100,000. But for me, I actually made money learning to fly, right? I would buy and sell airplanes. This was at a time when airplanes would go up in value. And it's not like I was crazy rich. My first airplane I bought for $12,000. I sold it for $20,000 or $25,000. And then I would buy another one, do the same thing. I had a whole system. But there again, that was a whole part of my younger life that me being frugal allowed me to do, because there was no way I was spending $100,000 to learn to fly. But, I became a mini airplane broker, I guess. It was never my intent to do that. But I would buy wisely, and I had relationships with mechanics that frankly I'd let fly the airplane. Many airframe and power plant mechanics, A&P mechanics are called for airplanes, also fly. So I'd work out an arrangement with them where they could fly the airplane for free and just pay for gas and oil. And this way I knew they did everything that they needed to do to keep that airplane safe, because they were flying in it, and oftentimes they were older than me and they had families. And they would take their wife and kids in the airplane. So anyways, being frugal has opened up so many doors for me. I enjoy it. It's made a difference for me financially as well. If you're new to my channel, you may not have heard me say, but anything we can do to be debt-free by the time we're 50, I think is really important. Because, we can all lose our jobs when we're 50 years old. If we could all lose our job, unless you work for yourself, we can all lose our jobs at any time, right? There's really not the job security that there was when our fathers and mothers were working a generation ago. And if you lose your job in your 50s, it can be hard to find another good job doing something that you like with people that you like. So trying to be debt-free by the time you're 50, I think, is a really good goal. I know it's hard to do, but frankly, by my wife and I being frugal, we were able to reach that goal. And I hope many of you can as well. So this video has gone a little bit long, but I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, do me a favor, hit the like button, leave a comment. I do read the comments. They mean a lot to me. And again, take a minute to hit the like button. It really does help the algorithm find other people that this video can help. And until next time, I'm Azul, encouraging you to take full advantage of the youth of your senior years. Remember, you're only young once. Use this time wisely.